Well, a funny sort of thing happens when you're stuck in a losing streak and decide to do something different, make a change. Not necessarily just a change for the sake of making a change, but a change for the sake of improving and playing better and not being in a losing streak. It's funny outcome that can result sometimes. Sometimes it can work out. Things can go well for you. And sure, it helped that Pitt was playing Boston College, one of the worst teams in the ACC, on Saturday. But, the Panthers have also lost to some of the worst teams in the ACC over the course of this season. I don't think any win can be taken for granted, and certainly not whatever it was, it ended up being a 26-point win, one of Pitt's biggest wins over an ACC opponent since the Panthers joined the conference back in 2013. I don't think you can take anything for granted at this point with this Pitt team, and certainly not when the win seems to be at least somewhat directly tied to some noticeable differences. And so as Pitt ended the regular season, I should say, on Saturday, and they head into the ACC tournament starting tomorrow with their first game against Notre Dame, can't help but sit back and think, maybe there were some changes to make along the way. Maybe some of the things that people were clamoring for on the outside weren't such bad ideas after all, and maybe, this is getting way too far ahead of ourselves, but if you follow up on some of those changes and continue with some of those adjustments and maybe, keep tweaking things in order to get your best lineups on the court for and maximize the talent that's available on your roster, maybe, just maybe, you can win a few games in Charlotte in the ACC tournament this week. We're getting ahead of ourselves with that. We could talk a little bit about this matchup with Notre Dame tomorrow. Of course, got to preview spring camp because that's going to start tomorrow. Spring football is firing up. Tomorrow is going to be a busy day in the world of Pitt sports between spring football and the start of the ACC tournament. But today we're just going to talk about basketball, recap that win over Boston College on Saturday night, what stood out, the rather drastic departures that Jeff Capel made. Literally did things he had not done all season long, in addition to a few other things that I think had an impact on that game and could positively affect this team and positively impact this team going forward. They made some changes. They did some things differently, and they need to continue doing those things if they want to win any games this week when they go to Charlotte. What did they do different? What kind of impact did it make? What do we take from it? What does it mean going forward? Let's talk about it all right here as we get your week started on the Monday edition of the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's Monday here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Glad to get a new week started here with you. Of course, we're on our second week as a member of the 24/7 Sports Network at Panther-Lair.com. The website, the same. The domain name, Panther-Lair.com. It's still the same, but the difference is that domain will take you to a new site. It's our new site on the 24/7 Sports Network, where we have a great network of not only team sites but also national analysts, recruiting analysts. There's a lot of great content coming out of all of those guys, in addition to what we provide on the Pitt coverage. Jim Hammett and Houston Wilson and Steven Gertz and Matt Steinbrink and me all covering Pitt basketball, and then Jim and I doing Pitt football. Eric Knopsnyder getting us the wrestling coverage from the ACC tournament. All kinds of Pitt coverage, and it's right there at Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you go check it out on the 24/7 Sports Network. Very excited to be there and get it rolling. We had a great first week. Looking forward to a great second week. So talking Pitt basketball here today after the Panthers' 93-67 win over Boston College at the Peterson Event Center on Saturday night, the regular season finale. Pitt gets a win. They break a 4-game losing streak, and they enter the ACC tournament. They finish the regular season and enter the ACC tournament with a 17-14 overall record and 8-12 mark in the conference. Well short of what they expected, certainly, of what we expected, of what just about anyone who watched Pitt basketball or observed Pitt basketball or observed the ACC or college basketball or observed college basketball probably expected out of this team. But the falling short of expectations is behind us. It's happened now. There's not much more to say in terms of where the expectations were and where they ended up. We know where the expectations were, and we know where Pitt ended up. And now they're heading into the ACC tournament as the number 13 seed, a team that needs to win the conference tournament in order to make the NCAA tournament. It's a spot we never thought they would be in. We never thought they would be that low of a seed entering the ACC tournament, and we never thought there would even be a question about them making it into March Madness. But that's the situation Pitt is in, and so we take it from here. But as Pitt goes into the ACC tournament, I think they enter in a very unique spot because of what happened on Saturday night. Now, make no mistake about it, Boston College is very bad. The score was 48-19 at halftime. Pitt was absolutely dominating Boston College, had a great first half, put up phenomenal numbers. And I think they got outscored in the second half, but they sort of emptied the bench at the end. And nevertheless, it was a blowout. It was a dominating win. It was every bit the 26-point victory that it looked like, which ended up being the fourth largest victory by Pitt over an ACC opponent since the Panthers joined the conference in 2013. And that was the kind of game it was because Boston College is that bad. Now, as we know, NC State, not very good, and Pitt lost to NC State. Notre Dame's not that great. Florida State's not that great. Virginia's not that great, and Pitt lost to all of those teams. So we're not going to sit here and say, well, Boston College stinks and that's all there was to it, because this team has struggled with teams that stink. More notable, though, than who they played or the margin of victory, although that's a secondary storyline to what we're about to talk about, is some of the things that Jeff Capel did in this game, most notably changing the starting lineup. And it wasn't just that he changed the starting lineup and added Brandon Cummings into the starting lineup so that it was Jaylen Lowe and Ishmael Leggett and Brandon Cummings and Zach Austin and Cam Corrin starting. That was one thing. Oh, that's interesting. They benched Guillermo Diaz-Graham and brought in Brandon Cummings to the starting lineup. Went with a 3-guard lineup with 2 forwards, as opposed to what they had been doing with Lowe, Leggett, Austin, Guillermo, and Cam Corrin, where it was really more of 2 guards and 3 forwards, 2 guards, 2 wings, and however you want to parse it. But it wasn't a 3-guard lineup like what they started on Saturday night. And the Brandon Cummings start was very interesting. He started 3 games. Pitt is actually 3-0 in the games that Brandon Cummings has started. They beat Cal, they beat Miami, and they beat Boston College. Again, some of the worst teams in the conference, but nevertheless. But it wasn't just about Cummings moving into the starting lineup and playing 30-plus minutes and having a pretty good game. Not the most efficient shooting game, but a good game overall. It was more about what happened at the center position. Guillermo Diaz-Graham moved out of the starting lineup, where he'd been starting at power forward, I think, most of the season. But what was interesting, and of course, I don't need to make this dramatic. You all watched the game. You've been talking about the game for the last 48 hours. You know what happened in the game. And you know that Cam Corrin and Guillermo Diaz-Graham were never on the court together. Not once were they on the court together. And that is a drastic departure from what Pitt has done virtually all season. In the first 30 games, Corrin and Diaz-Graham started next to each other 25 times. And when you look at the lineups on evanmaya.com, it's a great website that lists all the possessions for each lineup combination. They played together. They were on the court together for far more possessions than either was on the court individually. That's what they've done. And it's been a major point of contention for the fans all season long. It was a major point of contention for the fans throughout the summer. Even before it even started happening, it was a major point of contention that whether or not it could work. And I feel like most of the concern was centered around Guillermo Diaz-Graham and how he would play as a power forward. If he would get the same kind of shots he was getting as a center last year, if he would be able to shoot in different kinds of roles, and then also defensively how he would hold up. What evolved over the course of the season, though, was that quieter concerns about Cam Corrin's efficiency, or effectiveness, I should say, became louder and louder as the season went on, when Corrin proved to be not very impactful on defense, not very, particularly adept at rebounding, and just seemingly a producer of empty points. He had 20 points in the game at Notre Dame, a game that Pitt lost. A stat that we have often referenced here on the Morning Pitt and on Panther-Lair.com, and the fans have also mentioned, he's got 2 20-point games in his career. He scored 20 in that game at Notre Dame, and he scored 25, I think, for Florida State last year against Pitt. Both of those games ended up being losses. 3 of the top 5 highest-scoring games of Cam Corrin's career, his team has lost. He's just not a player who makes much of an impact. And even this game on Saturday night against Boston College, he played 17 minutes. He scored 16 points, and Pitt was +1 with Cam Corrin on the court. He scored 16 points, and Pitt was only 1 point better than Boston College during the 17 minutes when Cam Corrin was playing. His scoring just doesn't make an impact. It doesn't do anything. Now, granted, I guess you would say, well, if he didn't score those 16 points in his 17 minutes, then Pitt, instead of being +1 in that time, would be, minus 17 or something, right? I mean, the math wouldn't exactly work out like that, but still, his scoring and his offensive production just doesn't translate to team success. And I think, he was brought in for offense. I think if you ask the coaches how you feel about Cam Corrin's performance this year, they'd say, well, he upgraded the offense at the center position. And the response just has to be, and so what? What did it get you? His best scoring games have not translated to wins. I think if you looked at his scoring game by game, you'd see very little correlation between Cam Corrin scoring a lot and Pitt winning. Yes, they got the win on Saturday night when Cam Corrin scored 16 points. But they were +1 with him on the court in 17 minutes. It just it didn't matter. It didn't resonate. It didn't make an impact. Now, conversely, Guillermo Diaz-Graham, who is certainly not without his own flaws, played 19 minutes in that game, scored 6 points, but Pitt was a +30 with Guillermo Diaz-Graham on the court. 30. Now, plus-minus stats, there's a lot that goes into it. I think one of the stretches when Guillermo Diaz-Graham was on the court, I want to say, Ishmael Leggett hit 2 threes, and Brandon Cummings made a 3, and also shot 3 free throws. So, I mean, I think Pitt was +10 in like a 3.5-minute stretch there early in the first half. Guillermo Diaz-Graham's first shift in the first half. But, and there are flaws within the plus-minus. It's not a end-all, be-all, but, or I guess you would say be-all, end-all, right? But give me the guys who are on the court when your team scores more. You remember we tracked the stats. I actually found my spreadsheet that I was tracking the stats through the first however many ACC games that Pitt played. I think I stopped tracking after the first North Carolina game. I'm not sure why. I think I just lost interest, moved on to something else. But Pitt was something like +40 or right around there, plus in the high 30s or maybe low 40s with Guillermo Diaz-Graham as the lone center on the court in those first however many ACC games that it was. Cam Corrin was not +40 in those games. He seems like a nice guy. He scores. He's not particularly effective at rebounding. He's not great defensively, but he's able to score. But it just doesn't seem to matter. It just doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle for this team in terms of its success. And when they won on Saturday night, it wasn't because Cam Corrin scored 16 points. I could think of several other factors that contributed to that win, not named Cam Corrin. And there's a number of things. I mean, we could talk about Jaylen Lowe. We could probably do a whole episode on Jaylen Lowe, but, we'll get into Lowe in a second, okay? I don't want to leave the center conversation just yet. You run into a bit of a conundrum. A damned if you do and a damned if you don't when you make this kind of lineup change in game number 31, your final regular season game. You run into a bit of an issue, and it's not anything tangible, but it's like if you make a change now and it works, why didn't you make this change all along, right? And so Jeff Capel made this change, and I asked him after the game, like, why did you make this change? Why did you go with just one center? Why did you not have Corrin and Guillermo on the court at the same time when you've done that all year long? And his answer was basically said he felt like they were doing a disservice to the players. And he said over the last couple of games, but I mean, dude, you've been doing this all year. You've been playing this way all year. You've been using these guys together all year. Was the strict rotation at center the reason that they beat Boston College on Saturday night? I don't know. I probably wouldn't put it entirely on that, but I certainly don't think it hurts. I certainly don't think it's a bad thing, and it's something they should continue pursuing in the ACC tournament. And then down the road, they might look back and even say, you know what, we probably should have done that all season long. I don't know if they're going to go out and beat Notre Dame and North Carolina and Wake Forest in 3 consecutive games before they have to play like Duke or something on Friday in the ACC tournament semifinals just because they're rotating Cam Corrin and Guillermo Diaz-Graham at center. But if I'm Jeff Capel, I am absolutely doing that again. I'm going out on the court against Notre Dame on Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock or whenever that first game tips off. And I'll start Cam Corrin, but my first sub is going to be Guillermo Diaz-Graham for Cam Corrin, and those two will never be on the court at the same time. Whatever it was, and I think there's a variety of reasons why, but it worked. It worked on Saturday night. And what else worked on Saturday night was Jaylen Lowe's play. Jaylen Lowe has only had about 3 games this season where he shot 500 or better in a game, and Saturday night was one of them. His final stat line, thought I had the box score out. Get it out of my notebook. He shot 500. I know that. I just wanted to get the exact numbers, but I know he shot 500. Is this the box? Yes, it is. Jaylen Lowe was 4 of 8 from the floor, 1 of 2 from 3, 6 of 6 from the free throw line. He had 3 rebounds. He had 10 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, and 1 block. Really interesting to me. Jaylen Lowe didn't take a shot until like 9 or 10 minutes into the game. He finished the first half with only 2 official field goal attempts. Now, he also went to the free throw line twice, so, I mean, he kind of took shots there, but those don't count as shots. But Jaylen Lowe was not forcing his offense. Now, obviously, he attempted 8 shots in the game, so he attempted 6 in the second half. But even if he only averaged 6 shots per half, right, and finished the game with 12 field goal attempts, that would be a relatively low total for Jaylen Lowe. In the past 4 games, I think he's averaging more than 17 shots per game. And if there's anything you can, and there are a lot of things you could say about Jaylen Lowe and his performance this year, but if there's anything you could say, it's that he probably shoots too much. He forces it. He forces his shots. He doesn't play patient. He tries to take over the game and kind of, and I think his heart's in the right place. I think he's trying to do what he thinks is best for the team and take those shots and make those shots and lead the team, to victory. But he ends up shooting Pitt out of games a lot of times. I remember, I think his first shot attempt on Saturday, he missed. So he had 2 official field goal attempts in the first half. He missed both of them. He was 0 of 2 in the first half. I think he had 4 points on free throws. But his first one he missed, and it went down the other way, and the guy converted a layup. The second one he missed, went down the other way, and the guy had a wide open 3, and he missed it. But so many times, and this is probably one of those things that doesn't happen like a majority of the time, but it happens often enough that it seemed like a trend. So many times, Jaylen Lowe will take a questionable shot, force a shot, just try and do it all on his own, and it turns into a long rebound or a quick defensive rebound for the other team that turns into a transition opportunity. It's that old, a bad shot is the first pass in the other team's fast break, right? And that's what Jaylen Lowe has been too often. But on Saturday night, he wasn't. On Saturday night, he didn't force it. A little bit in the second half he did, but not too much. Not like he has in previous games. He let the game come to him. He took what was there, and he ended up with, I think he had 5 assists in the first half, 10 in the game. He had a double-double with 15 points and 10 assists. And he also had 3 rebounds. That's the kind of game Pitt has needed out of Jaylen Lowe for 31 nights, for 30 games prior to Saturday. And it's the kind of game they need out of Jaylen Lowe starting tomorrow in the ACC Tournament. He needs to play like that. If he plays like that, if Jaylen Lowe plays like that, if he doesn't force it, if he takes what's there, he finds his teammates, he distributes the ball, he runs the offense like a point guard, not a scoring point guard, but like a point guard, and he runs the offense like that, they're going to have a chance to beat Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's good. Marcus Burton is averaging like better than 31 points per game. He scored 20 against Pitt, and he's only gotten better over the 4 games since then. He's averaging 31.5 points per game since then. Marcus Burton is on a tear. Now, he scored 43 on Saturday in a 4-overtime game. That's a good way to juice your numbers, is to play an extra 20 minutes, right? But he has been on a tear. It's going to be tough to stop him. They're probably going to have to score with him. But Jaylen Lowe can't just take that on himself. Sometimes he can. Sometimes he needs to make a big play. But he also needs to find his teammates. He needs to distribute to Guillermo, distribute to Ishmael Leggett, distribute to Amsal Delilich, distribute to Brandon Cummings, distribute to Zach Austin. And then as you're distributing, and the team and the opponent is starting to sag off a little bit, then you're going to have your opportunities to drive. Don't just be the man from the very start. Set up your teammates. Get your teammates going, and that's going to open up opportunities for you. You don't necessarily need to dump it off to Cam Corrin all that much because, again, his points don't seem to really translate to wins. And it feels like a lot of the passes that go to him in the interior end up as turnovers anyway. But you can set up Guillermo. You can set up Ishmael Leggett and Zach Austin and Delilich and Cummings and all these guys. They're good players out there. This team is maybe not as good as we thought it was going to be. They aren't as good as we thought they were going to be. They're probably better than they've played, but not as good as we expected them to be. But they're still good enough to beat Notre Dame tomorrow. And they're good enough to beat, we've seen them beat North Carolina. and play North Carolina to within a point on the road. So they're good enough to beat Notre Dame. They're good enough to beat North Carolina. It's not like they got blown out at Wake Forest. I mean, they can go on a run here if they do some of the things they did on Saturday night. If Jaylen Lowe can play within himself, if Jaylen Lowe can distribute to his teammates and pick his shots a little bit more carefully, be a little bit more thoughtful in what kind of shot attempts he takes, and then rotate the centers and play Cummings and Delilich more. Like, things happen when those guys are on the court. We do, like, look, you got to give me credit. I made it this far, like 20 minutes into this video before I really dove in on Amsal Delilich and Brandon Cummings. But, like, good things happen when those guys play. Like, I should say things happen when those guys play. And a lot of those things are good. Some of them, you're like, oh, no, don't do that. But most of them are pretty good. It's exciting to watch those guys, and I think they just keep getting better and better game after game. The more minutes they keep getting, and Cummings on Saturday night had 32.5 minutes. Delilich had about 17. Delilich scored 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 steal. Cummings had 16 points, 3 rebounds, all on offense, which is notable, plus 5 assists, 1 turnover, and 1 steal. Cummings was a plus 20. Delilich was a plus 7 during his 17 minutes. I think they are winning players. I think they can make plays to help you win games. And if nothing else, they're exciting. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I have a feeling there's a chance it could be pretty good. It's pretty exciting. Call it I'll try and appeal to the broader Western PA crowd, but call it the Justin Fields effect. Like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but there's a better than even chance that it's going to be something good and probably pretty exciting. So, let's go with those guys who can do good things to help you win and might be exciting to watch. And every now and then they might make you want to pull your hair out, but it's also exciting to watch. It's okay to go with the guys who are fun to watch, And just so happens, I think Cummings and Delilich can help this team win. So it's always good to enter the ACC tournament on after a win, and certainly a 26-point blowout win like Pitt had on Saturday night. It's always good to enter with that kind of momentum. And so you start talking yourself into some good things they can do, but it's just a reality. If Jaylen Lowe can play like that, if Ishmael Leggett can be as efficient as he was 4 of 8 from the floor. All 4 baskets he made were 3-pointers. He only attempted 1 2-point shot in that game, and he finished with 14 points because he shot 4 of 7 from 3 and made 2 free throws. If these guys can do some of those things that they did, independent of opponents. It wasn't just because Boston College was bad. It was Jaylen Lowe was taking what was there for him. Ishmael Leggett wasn't forcing things. Those 2 guys in particular, if they're not forcing things, this team can be pretty solid. Rotate the centers, play the freshmen, get solid, patient play out of the guards. And who knows? Maybe you'll play for a few days in Charlotte. Wouldn't that be fun? We'll certainly have a lot to talk about here on the Morning Pit. I think we're going to have a live show after the game tomorrow. I haven't 100% locked it in, but I think we're going to do a post-game show, at least for a little bit after the game ends tomorrow, so we'll keep an eye out for that, and it'll be right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You want to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Turn on your notifications. You can get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live, so that way you're like, wait, did Chris say he was going to go live? Is there a post game? What's going on? Well, no. Hey, I got an alert. They're live. Let's go. We make it easy for you. All right. Like this video and subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you had a great weekend. Enjoy your Monday. We'll catch up with you tomorrow to preview spring camp and Pitt Notre Dame and everything else going on in the world of Pitt sports right here on the Morning Pit. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.